Welcome back, everybody. We are the Alter Ego Brothers. I'm Nick, that's Andy, and today we're talking about Ready or Not 2. Here I come.
You're like, what?
I'm sorry? I survived Ready or Not 2, and all I got was the stupid sword from the movie.
No, you fucking didn't.
I actually already had that sword, and I geeked out a lot when they showed that sword in the movie. I was like, I have that! That's mine! I've had that for years! But I did get this pin. Anyway, I gave this a 10 out of 10. I really enjoyed this series, and I think for something that could be really, really gimmicky, that they have cemented their own place in horror history.
You've absolutely shocked me. I'm a 6 out of 10. I came out of the theater thinking that the first one was the better movie, but everyone else that came out, I kept hearing say that this was the better movie. I just disagree, and I guess we'll get into that here in a moment.
All right, so put those together, and that gives us an 8 out of 10 overall. I honestly think this is our first 8 out of 10 for the year. Okay, well, let's just jump right into it and get into the nitty-gritty of the story. Ready or Not 2 focuses a lot more about family, which is weird to say because the first one does also focus about family, but this one's specifically more about sibling relationships. And not even just between Grace and Faith, the two main characters of the movie, but there are a lot of other families who are participating in this game that you get to see the different dynamics between them and their siblings and who do and don't work well together and who's just kind of out for themselves in the whole thing. I really liked watching those. I liked watching those relationships grow or break over time and become more entangled and self-serving as the movie progresses. And you kind of see the opposite happen with Grace and Faith. They already start off very much butting heads and against each other, but as the movie goes on, they start to understand one another, they work through some differences, and ultimately end up in a better place. The second thing I really enjoyed about the story is that they really showcased new rules for this new game as far as the whole cult goes and different families are participating in it and how they can or can't interact. It was very strict and compact, but also not so strict that you couldn't see a few of the characters bend the rules. And that kept me guessing about what are they gonna do to find that loophole in the end. And I thought that was a great way to keep the story propelling forward.
You actually brought up a good point. I just wrote down the note. It's not The Hangover 2, which this easily could have been with a lot of just the same mechanics that the first one had. They do enough different things here that it does feel like a totally different game. And I think having a different area that they're at also really helps with that too. So there's new places to explore. I really did like the ending choice and the loophole that they find there. I know we do allow spoilers here, but I'll refrain for some of those spoilers. But it feels like they're probably not going to do a Ready or Not 3, and I'm a fan of that. So I think like 2 is probably as far as it needed to go, and I didn't even think it needed to go that far. Overall, as far as the story goes, I didn't mind it. I do like the play on like the horror aspect, the being hunted down mixed with the comedy aspect of it. I just felt like there was just a lot of like Hollywood basic writing choices in this, and I just felt like there were too many hands in the pot at times. I am dead certain there's a solid 30 minutes of this movie just completely cut out because it went from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. almost instantly. There's too many inconsistencies and too many basic things. It just didn't take enough risks for me to push it to a higher score.
Well, I'll tackle a little bit of column A and column B in here from what you said. I thought this movie was fairly consistent. I thought that Samara Weaving did an incredible job interacting and portraying that trauma from the previous day and going into the next day and not ever really being back at 100%. Like, she was still very much hurt from the first movie, very much hurt from the beginning of the second movie, all the way to the end. She's literally just like bleeding and hanging out and leaving trails of blood. And I thought that attention to detail was really, really cool. You don't see a lot of stuff like that in horror movies in particular, let alone sequel horror movies. It reminded me a lot of Black Phone 2. So I'm a little taken aback when you're like, it was not consistent for you. I thought it was super consistent on my end. I also wanted to shout out Sean Hattasey, who played Titus in the movie. That was a performance, man. Like, we see him going from this emotional, rich, spoiled kid. Like, he has trouble killing his dad towards the beginning, and he's like getting all emotional about it, to just transforming into this murderous monster by the end of it, and seeing him just how other people's choices impact him throughout the story, and him getting that, embarrassment from both Grace and Faith knocking him over and everything that his sister's saying, and then finally breaking and being like, I'm not taking any of this shit anymore. I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. I thought that was a wonderful performance from somebody I had never seen on screen before, and I was very much surprised by that.
Samara Weaving's performance was fucking fantastic. I'm actually not super familiar with Samara Weaving. I got to know her quite a bit when I watched the first one before going in to see this one, because I'm late to the game. I missed the first one, but her acting was fantastic. She brings such a great nuance to her character that's just really entertaining and really relatable, and I fucking love that. So her performance was fantastic. I did think Sean's performance too was also really good. He was also very entertaining to watch. I didn't think anyone else really stepped up their game to the level that they were portraying, and it just made the disconnect from skill level really blatantly obvious to me. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying about some of the basic Hollywood choices and some of these characters. You got the classic rich dude who's like, I gotta take a selfie with these guys type of thing. It's stop trying to be relatable, Hollywood. It's just cringe, and I hate that. So maybe their acting can be good, but I think maybe some of the writing really suffocated that.
I would say the point of that part was to be cringe. They're not supposed to be relatable. They're ultra wealthy people who are just out of here.
That's fine, but I didn't like it. but Samara was fantastic. It's literally she continues right where she left off in the first one. Didn't skip a beat at all. And to your point about it being kind of like Black Phone 2, this movie does segue right off where the first one ended. That part was consistent. There are consistent things in here. I'm just saying some of the choices throughout the movie were a bit inconsistent, where just, you got Sean, who's just he's go-getter, you're going to be the person I get. But then apparently, based on the chronological order of the story in the movie, Sean's just sitting by the North Gate for 8 hours waiting for her to show up. I'm just she called the cops so long ago, and you think at some point they would go investigate, but no, they waited that out. I'm that doesn't seem like Sean's character. He was very much adamant about being a go-getter and going to get her. He took everyone's keys out of the golf cart so he could be the first one to get her. It's inconsistent. It just didn't make sense to me why that would be their choice. But anyway, I digress.
So now I kind of want to just rapid fire some things that I really did enjoy. I also really liked the music to this. I thought there were a couple of scenes, in particular, the bride fight scene that they had between each other. I thought that was really fun musically. And I also noticed that throughout the movie that they had put in a score version or a symphony version of the record from the first movie that sang the hide and seek song, and you hear it come in and out from the movie, and I thought that was just really fun. Special effects wise, practical effects, which was awesome. The CGI was used in the correct way, and that is to enhance the practical effects and not steal the show. So I think they did a great job at not lingering on those CGI shots and making sure that you see them really quick. They're quick and dirty enough to be believable, but then they go in, and when you see close-up stuff, or when you see Faith and Grace covered in blood from an explosion, that stuff is practical. You had a person there who threw blood on them, and that was all super fun as well. And then I thought that the pacing was right where it needed to be. I didn't think that it felt sluggish in spots or that it was going too quickly. As the movie was going forward, we had enough to chew on to flow into the next scene. And I thought that they did, a bang up job on that.
first thing I think of is the music point that you made. This was the area where I was hung up, where if I wanted to go a little bit higher with it and give this a 7 out of 10. I ended up not, because I couldn't. When I think of like a great score, I think of like a theme and something that I'm singing after the movie, and I didn't quite get there. But I thought the music did a really good job of having the appropriate type of music for that scene, and really just enhancing every single one of those scenes. So I did think it did a great job, but I couldn't quite get there. But like I won't die on that hill by any means. I did notice too, it's a different composer this time around than the first time. So I was kind of surprised by that, but it's the same directors, same writers, it's the same a lot of things, but that was different. So I was concerned that they were going to go a whole different direction with the music. They did not. This new composer respected what the first one did, it seems like, and I think maybe did a little bit better job overall. Special effects, that's I think the highlight of this movie for sure. It was really cool, especially the dude and his like dissolved body from the boiling water.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, that looks so messed up.
It was, wasn't it? All right, as always, let's see what the internet has to say. All right, from an audience standpoint, they gave it a total of 8 out of 10. And then from the critic side of things, they were a 7 out of 10. So we're still right in the ballpark, right in the money.
It's almost kind of disappointing when we're like that. It's like, well, you don't need to watch us then. You can just look it up.
So since we were together an 8 out of 10, let's look at a 1 out of 10 review. And shockingly enough, there was only one star review when I looked this up today.
Bullshit.
So I thought that was... No,
Today?
It literally was. Yeah, there was only one star review. Ready or not, here comes another dud of a film. It's hard to believe that it's been 7 years since the first Ready or Not came out. I wouldn't say it was a horror classic, but the original did just enough to make it somewhat entertaining. The sequel, on the other hand, tries to take the same formula and what it calls double or nothing to be successful. The suspension of disbelief is on another level. There's only so much suspension of disbelief that one can reasonably believe. Ready or Not 2 takes it to the extreme. From a sniper badly missing about 5 or more times early on, to the sisters overpowering a much bigger man, it just defies logic at every turn. There's a lot of family dysfunction here, from the two sisters bickering to the twins battling for power. There's a loophole that makes zero sense and ruins whatever moment that the film had. If the loophole in the film is true, then it completely negates the plot from the first film and makes the first film completely irrelevant. If the film can't even follow on its own logic that it set up, and we have such a suspension of disbelief, then the final product is a disaster. I would not recommend Ready or Not 2.
The first thing, the loophole stuff does totally make sense, and maybe they missed something, but I think maybe what they are forgetting that happened in the first one is that she said, "I'm divorcing you." That's different than truly being married and killing your husband. And she didn't learn that she can just kill the person that she's directly related to like that until the second movie. So that was consistent. That does make sense. But the other point too about this, the unbelievable parts about it, about a sniper just wildly missing these shots. First of all, it is hard to hit those shots. It's not as easy as just like looking down a scope. I will say that. But I think I even have a hard time remembering that I have to judge this as a comedy as well. It's hard to determine like what are you trying to go for here? Are you trying to be realistic and horror, or are you trying to be more like a Scary Movie 6? Like which one are you going for here? And it's a combination of both, and I think it's a good blend of both. But because of that, it's like, where does it fit on my scale of how do I rate this movie? And if you're wanting something more realistic, this isn't the movie for you because it has comedy features in it. You have to remember that going in and watching it. And if you don't like those comedy features, then it's not that it's a bad movie by itself. It's just not a good movie for you to watch.
I think it's reasonable to believe that somebody who was a TV personality wouldn't be a crack shot sniper. As far as the plot hole part, I think this guy is referring to marriage getting them out of the game and that negating the first one, but this is a separate game. This isn't just one family. This is several families. There are different rules, and they went through a lot of them and showed you what happens if you try to bend or break these rules. Some of them have dire consequences immediately, and you and your whole family just go up in smoke and are done. And others, you have a loophole where the guy gave all the power to his wife and she just leaves. And so now he's left with nothing. It's a silly movie, but they did actually have explanations from within the movie itself. And that'll do it for us today. Thank you much for liking, commenting, and subscribing. It really helps us out when you do that. YouTube really likes us when you do that, and we really like you when you do that. Almost even like. And remember, we're just two regular dudes
doing regular reviews. You're like, what?